Hello, welcome to the Pages at Heart Design Team YouTube channel. Today I am going to share with you the Floral Charm Scrapbooking Workshop Guide that I have created. These are the items that we will be using in this workshop guide. This is the paper of the Floral Charm. I've got 5 of the sheets here. One I use completely, and I will point that out to you when I go through the layout. But this is the Floral Charm paper. It is so pretty. Each side of the paper, there are 12 different designs, so you get 2 each of 6 different designs. And as you can see, we have Timid Tiger, and on this side, these colors. This is like a washed color. It's really pretty. And then on the other side, this, I just love the colors in these papers. These are really soft colors of flowers. And this side is the Night of Navy, I believe that's the color. And then we have a mossy oak washed color. And on this side, some really pretty colors here. That is the new Timid Tiger color. And we've got Blackberry Bliss, Mossy Oak. This one is one of my favorite sides. It is just really soft. And then on the back, we've got the pretty peacock. So this is kind of like leaves. So you can see there's a variety. So we have like a wash color. These are leaves. These are flowers. All of your solid colors. They'll either be a wash or a floral. The other one is Blackberry Bliss, and I'll point that out to you as we go through the layouts. The other items that I used in this workshop was the Charming Day stamp and thin cuts. Now you can get these separately or you can get them together as a bundle, and I recommend getting them as a bundle. So the stamp has a couple of flowers and some leaves and actually, these are card sentiments, but I did use them in the layout and I'll point that out. So I like to challenge myself to use the card stamps in scrapbooking layouts. We'll just open this up, pop this up here. I have put my dies in with my stamps. You can see that these are cling stamps. I don't have a lot of cling stamps, but I do really like the way that they stamp. And you will see that there are more dies than there are stamps. And I love this about the dies because you can use some dies without the stamps at all. You can see these open dies coordinate with these stamps, and then we've got some standalone dies. The other thing that I use is the Glass and Gardens embossing folders. Now, this comes together when you purchase these, but I did not use this one. I used this one. You can see it's got a floral. I'll show you where that is in the scrapbooking layout. And then to finish it off, I've got the Charming Shimmer faceted dots here. These are really pretty. So I use those throughout the layout. Okay, let's take a look at the layouts. The first layout, it uses my favorite paper. It says Moment Like These, and I will say the titles are all Cricut cuts. And if you do not have a Cricut Access subscription, you may have to pay for your titles. They're like 99 cents each. So, and these hearts are just Cricut cuts, but that's the only thing I use the Cricut for, were the titles and for these little hearts. So you can see right here, I will demonstrate after I go through the layouts. On this, I used watercolor pencils and a water brush. I'll show you a couple of different ways that you can use those. Here's your little spot here for journaling. And this is 3x3 photos. And then this is a 4x6 photos. And I will show you a little bit close up. And I want to point this out. Get a close-up view of this little piece here. I forgot to pull that. This is some rectangle dies that I used. I've got the measurements if you just want to do a straight cut, but I just like the way that it adds to the little edge of that. And just looking to see, I think, need to see if I've got that listed. That is layout 1. Here is layout 2. Layout 2. So you're going to do a little bit of ink blending on the background. On this page, I did a lot of prep before I got started. So there's a little bit of ink blending and then some stamping. You can see the ink blending back here. And on this, I used a lot of the standalone dies for this page. This is another Cricut title. Just show this close up a little bit. This is the other paper that I did not have to show because you can see I used one whole sheet of one page, and then the other one I've got almost a full sheet, but I saved just enough to do some die cutting and some little flags here, and don't have the other side to show you. But I thought I did a pretty good job of using almost all of my paper. I've got just enough paper left that I might make a few cards. Here is the last layout, layout number 3. Blessed is another Cricut title, and so is I Am a Child of God. And I cut this out of the white piece and then I backed it with some of the green DSP paper. And I've got a lot of little layered flowers down here. I want to show you those up close. So I used the dye on the green and then I used it on the Timid Tiger, and then I cut away the flower and I layered it on top of the Mossy Oak DSP. And rather than throw away the extra little leaves that I cut away, I tucked them in behind the title here. And you can see I've got some more blended ink behind the title and also across this piece here. Now, I want to show you how I did the flowers. Let's look at this little die cut first. So we have this die cut here, and I did one of each. This is just another idea, something that you can do with this die cut rather than use it in one solid color. You can cut away, and then I think I got one without any adhesive. Let's quick there. And just layer your dies, layer your cut pieces, and then you end up with a 2-color layered. It looks really pretty. So that is some different ways that you can use that die and layer it up and add more color to one piece. Now, let me show you this right here. On layout 1, this is white cardstock right here, and there's some on the other. And I random stamped on it, and then I colored in the leaves to make it look like DSP. And the way that I did this one, there are a couple of different ways that you can do it, but the way that I did this one is I took my Mossy Oak ink, and let's just put a little bit right here. And just take a water brush. Now I know that Stampin' Up no longer has the water brush because their manufacturer quit producing it. But this is something that you probably have in your stash. And all I did is you can put the ink on the block and then squirt a little bit of it out with the water brush. And I pretty much just touched it to the leaf, not really kind of moving. I feel like I'm moving the ink around, but you kind of want it to look kind of like your paper does over here, just to give it a really soft look. And you can get that look just by moving the ink around with the water brush. And you don't even have to fill it in fully, just a little bit will do. Okay, let me wipe this off. Now I want to demonstrate the flower that I did here. Now, this ribbon is not listed in the supply list, and you can use twine, any kind of ribbon that you want to use. I think this one is petal pink braid or something like that. And that is the only place that I used it, and it's not very much. So I didn't feel the need to actually list that on the supply list because I think a lot of people probably have different things that they can use that just added a little bit of touch. There is one of the places that I used the stamp. You make my day. That was from the card stamp. I forgot to point those out. So let's talk a little bit about this flower. So I use watercolor pencils and a water brush, and I want to show you the different looks that you get with the watercolor pencil and using a water brush and a blender pen. Let me see. I don't know if I can. Let me see if I can move the camera down just a little bit to give you a closer view. Okay, that's a little bit closer. I think you may be able to see that better. So just to save on time, I've already colored this in with watercolor pencils, and I actually used a coral, a red, and kind of like a mossy green, and something that was close to a pretty peacock. So I'm just going to take my water brush. I'll wipe that off good. And I'm just going to go over. And I did stamp this in a early espresso ink a little while ago and have let it dry. So I don't really have a problem with it smearing. And you can see how that just creates a soft look with that water brush. Okay, now this one, I've used watercolor pencils, and I'm going to use a blender pen. And these have two ends, so that's great for using on different colors. Now I'm going to show you how I did my shading. I colored the whole flower with the blender. Now I'm just going to go over this area with the red watercolor pencil. And there are so many different watercolor pencils out there. I think it'd just be easy for you to match up with what you have on hand. I think I've got 3 or 4 sets of watercolor pencils. Okay, so I've just added the red in there for some detail. Now I'm just going to take my blender pen and go over that. And it just kind of blends it in. The darker color stays darker, and it just gives it that little bit of shading. Now, to show you how I did my leaves, this is the kind of mossy oak color, and I'm just coloring that in there. And let's do a little bit of blue, peacock color on the leaf. And we'll take my blender pen now. Oops, let's use an end I haven't used. And just blend that in. And it kind of smears the blue around, which I was going for this leaf right here, just to kind of make it match. So you can see the difference in There's not a lot of difference. This was used with a water brush, and this is a watercolor. This is with a blender pen. Both of these are watercolor pencils. Now, if you don't have watercolor pencils, or maybe you like to use alcohol markers, this one I colored with the Stamp and Blend markers actually on this one. And this is a little bit darker, so it depends on the look that you're going for. You might want something that is a little bit more darker. This one is the light Calypso Coral. So I just colored this in. And you can see this coral is a lot deeper. I mean, you might have some markers that are a little bit lighter colors. And then I'm going to use, this is the dark, and I'm just going to use that to color in the middle. Let's do some shading. And to lighten that up, we're going to use the color lifter. I'm going to use the brush end here. And I'm just going to touch it in some places. You can see that lifts a little bit of the color off of that and gives that a nice shaded look. So that is using the Stampin' Blends. That gives you a few different options on how you want to color your stamped flowers. And let's see, I think this is the only page where you do have the coloring. There's another place there I use the stamp, Happy. I just stamped it out and then hand cut it. And then on this page, this is another place I use that little rectangle, decorative rectangle die. Thanks for being you. I thought that was perfect for that page. So that is our Floral Charm Scrapbooking Workshop Guide. And when you purchase $50 from any of the Pages at Heart Design Team websites, you will automatically get you will qualify for our scrapbooking workshop guide, and any that have already been released you can choose from. It doesn't have to be the one we have released that month, but we have already, this will be the 14th guide that we will be releasing, and you get clear and cutting instructions, and then on patterns on how to put the layouts together. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. Check out all of the other scrapbooking workshop guide videos on this channel to see everything that we have created for you so far.